Spring, 1899. The Mother Superior of the Good Shepherd Convent has been confined to bed for several months. An infection of the spinal cord has paralyzed arms and legs. On the insistence of her father confessor, she begins to dictate her life story to one of her fellow sisters.
I find it difficult to put all of this in words, but the Lord will help me to remember and experience everything once again as though it had happened only yesterday.
Münster, in Westphalia. The history of this university city goes back 1,200 years. The cathedral, built in the 13th century, has remained the center of the city to this day. The Prinzipalmarkt, with its Gothic town hall and traders' residences, is a testament to the city's wealth. Münster's most magnificent noble mansion is the Baroque Erbdrostenhof. It is here that Maria Droste zu Vischering is born, on September the 8th, 1863, as the fourth of 10 children born to Count Clemens Droste zu Vischering and his wife Helene, née Countess von Galen. Maria Droste zu Vischering's baptism is held in the Servati Church, performed by her uncle, Max Gerion von Galen, the later suffragan bishop of Münster. Maria spends her childhood at the castle of Darfield, 20 miles from Münster. The family's residence, begun in 1612, counts among the most beautiful castles of Münster's countryside. Maria is described as a lively child. She plays hide-and-seek in the expansive halls of the castle, rollicks about in the garden, and learns ice skating as well as horseback riding. When she plays, she never pays attention to her dress, complains her mother. She runs about in the damp grass and bushes until she's so dirty that she has to change everything afterwards. Maria grows up at a time when the Catholic Church had lost much of its political and social influence in Germany. Protestantism and liberalism are the shaping forces behind Prussia. Bismarck, the imperial chancellor, confronts the Church in a contest of strength, introducing the civil marriage ceremony and closing down monasteries and convents as well as Catholic schools. The Catholics respond to this process of social secularization by initiating new liturgical celebrations and by developing a piousness of a highly emotional character. The center of religious family life at Darfield is the chapel, located in the castle. In 1875, at the age of 12, Maria receives her first communion, together with her brother. During the Easter holidays that following year, Maria is allowed to accompany her parents to Paris, where they visit Maria's sister Augusta at the Catholic boarding school, the Sisters of Visitation.
Later on, while we children were talking about our future, my brothers declared, "Maria will certainly never enter the convent." Although I remained silent, I thought to myself, "Oh yes, I will."
This defiant, "Oh yes, I will," is typical of the young girl's character. Maria is one of those who are seldom satisfied with things half done. Everything she did with the entire force of her passionate personality, writes her cousin. Hidden beneath her apparent coolness was an exceptionally warm and deeply sensitive heart. In the winter of 1878, Maria hears a sermon in the church at Darfield whose theme is the biblical saying, "Thou shalt love the Lord our Savior with all thy heart and soul."
Immediately the thought came to me, then you've got to become a nun. How I would have liked to have had my ears plugged to tell myself the sermon is not meant for you. But it was impossible for me to resist the voice of God.
In the spring of 1879, Maria is sent to the boarding school, the Sacred Heart Sisters, in Riedenburg at Lake Constance. Life at the boarding school is strict. Discipline, obedience, and devotion to studies are demanded.
In Riedenburg, I learned to control my temperament a little. I began to understand that to love Jesus without any spirit of sacrifice was an empty fancy.
After completing the 2 years of study, the young countess applies for admission to the convent of the Sacred Heart Sisters. The Mother Superior, however, informs her that she is ill-suited to the life of the convent due to her poor health. Maria, disappointed, returns to Darfield. She submits to being introduced to the management of the family's finances and to her father's administrative duties. In August 1883, Maria once again expresses her wish to become a nun. Her parents establish contact with the Joseph Sisters in Copenhagen. Maria's health, however, continues to worsen. She is tortured by headaches, fever, coughing fits, and overall exhaustion. Health resort stays at the seaside and in the mountains prove to be of little help. Maria becomes increasingly reticent and difficult. Conflicts between mother and daughter sharpen. Maria begins to refashion her childhood room in the style of a convent cell, has a black dress fitted, and privately swears a vow of chastity. Relatives and friends begin to talk. Despite all her enthusiastic piousness, however, she has not renounced the world. She is seen at receptions and balls in Münster. The 21-year-old looks on, not without pleasure, as the young men pay court to her. In the summer of 1888, something happens in the hospital at Darfield which proves to be a key experience in Maria's life.
I was visiting the female patients with my mother. There was an unhappy child whose plight had created quite a stir. I noticed that my mother seemed worried, for she had always been extremely careful to prevent us from having contact with anything sinful. Nevertheless, I thought to myself, if the Lord were here now, which of the ill would he most lovingly treat? I overcame my own reluctance and gently squeezed the poor girl's hand.
This encounter occupies Maria for many days and draws her attention to the Good Shepherd congregation, devoted to social work in Münster. Shortly afterwards, in the parish church at Darfield, she comes to the decision, "You must enter the order of the Good Shepherd." Maria sends an official petition for entrance to the provincial superior in Münster, Mother Lamberti Bouchy, and receives a positive reply. The date of her reception is set for the 21st of November, 1888. The provincial house of the Good Shepherd in Münster was founded in 1850 as a nursing home and boarding school for girls. Many of them come from the mining towns of the Ruhr area and from the seaports of Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and Haarlem, where they begged, wandered about, or worked as prostitutes. Others are victims of the oppressive social poverty of Imperial Germany. For many parents, the House of the Good Shepherd was the last hope to save their children from hunger and neglect. Maria spends 5 years in Münster. Her cell is modest and simple like those of the other community members. Like many before and after herself, she experiences inner tensions between a strong pull toward a reclusive, contemplative lifestyle and a discerned calling toward active apostolic life.
Until now, I've held one hand over my eyes so as not to see the cross before which I tremble. Should I retreat? No, my Savior, I accept it from your hand.
On the 29th of June, 1891, Sister Maria takes her vows. Much to her joy, she receives the name Sister Maria of the Divine Heart, and is appointed to administrator of the Mary's Heart group. She writes her mother teasingly,
I have to congratulate you. You have, all at once, become the grandmother of 97 children.
Maria goes about her work of educating and caring for the children with youthful enthusiasm. Her empathy, her many-sided education, her youthful brightness and never-ending good cheer open the hearts of all those around her. She is most attracted to the difficult cases.
The most unfortunate, the poorest and most deserted of children are my favorites. They are my treasure.
Talk of the young sister's qualities has soon reached as far as the mother house of the order in Angers, France. On the 20th of January, 1894, Maria is appointed to assistant of the Mother Superior in Lisbon. Saying goodbye to her family and to Münster is extremely difficult for her.
You have no idea of what it feels like to be separated, in all likelihood forever, from everything that was precious and treasured. Now I can truly say, Lord, I have given up everything and have come to follow you.
On February 24th, Maria arrives in Lisbon. The convent of the Good Shepherd is directed by Anna von Schorlema, a Westphalian noble. The warm climate improves Maria's health. She feels strengthened.
There are 55 girls in my class, among them 1 Negro and 1 mulatto. The children are easy to lead, but as long as I cannot speak Portuguese, being mistress of the class will continue to be difficult. Our Mother Superior has bought me a big grammar book, which I would most of all like to throw into the oven.
Maria settles down in Lisbon, anticipating a long stay, although things turn out differently. An urgent plea for help arrives from the Good Shepherd convent in Porto. The Mother Superior has collapsed under the burden of the intense workload. On the 12th of May, 1894, Sister Maria is appointed to the new Mother Superior in Porto. At the end of the 19th century, the city of Porto is, next to Lisbon, the most important city in the country. The large harbor and the factories at the outskirts of town have enabled an urban proletariat to emerge, the likes of which had hitherto been unknown in Portugal. The House of the Good Shepherd in Porto was established due to the initiative of a noble lady and her chaplain, Don Rua. Rua had taken out a loan to buy a run-down country house in the workers' district. A large laundry was expected to quickly erase the debt, but the steam-driven machinery operated uneconomically, and the convent's debts increased. What's more, the long-term illness of the first superior further complicated matters. The community sisters were left to themselves, and the supervision and care of the children suffered. A difficult situation for Maria Droste zu Vischering. She writes to her father,
It is not exactly easy to feed and clothe 120 people. I've only got 5 or 6 marks in the cash box. I was recently in such desperation that I began to cry.
With radical measures and Westphalian stubbornness, Maria tries to set this deplorable state of affairs straight. She is met with opposition and lack of understanding. Several sisters want to send complaints to Angers. Others boycott her measures. Maria, however, is not so easily discouraged. The first winter in Porto. Storms and rain alternate with ice and snow. Maria sits freezing in her cell, warming her hands on a jug of hot water, doing calculations, planning and writing letters pleading for assistance. In the summer of 1895, the Good Shepherd of Porto already houses 130 girls and is bursting at the seams. Maria, acting quickly, clears out the community room to accommodate additional beds.
My guiding principle, never to turn away a child so long as there remains one solitary corner free, and always to give preference to the poorest, the most desolate and deserted, has so obviously received the blessing of the Sacred Heart that I have resolved to leave it to my fellow sisters as my legacy.
In the fall of 1895, the Benedictine abbot, Ildefonso Schober, who is currently on visitation in Portugal, pays a visit to the German Mother Superior. Schober later says of this first encounter, "The Mother Superior entered gracefully, lacking the slightest trace of affectation or pride. In her judgments and convictions she made quite an authoritative impression, like a monarch. The Mother spoke to me of her principles and of the demands she made of her subordinates. I had to interrupt 3 or 4 times to contradict her, reminding her that she can never apply her own high standards to others without any qualification." In the months and years following, Abbot Ildefonso becomes her closest spiritual advisor. With his help, combined with her father's support and the funds of her own dowry, she succeeds in restoring a tolerable financial status to the convent. In February 1896, Maria travels to France, despite weakening health, to take part in the 50-year jubilee of the Superior General. From there she travels on to Münster. The news that she has come to visit spreads like wildfire. There was so little time, and so many people wanted to see her, that it was impossible to speak to her alone, complains her Irish childhood friend, Lizzie McMahon. Maria is able to stay for only 4 days before departing. On the 10th of March, she is back in Porto. Her physical strength has been exhausted. Several doctors look after Maria. Their diagnosis? Advanced spinal cord infection with severe damage of the spinal nerves. A cure is impossible. From this point on, the sisters explain, her life was a true martyrdom. In the fall of 1896, Maria's worried parents arrived for a short visit in Porto. "She was of such good cheer that the tears rolled down our cheeks as we laughed together," recalled her mother. It doesn't take long, though, before all those present realize the seriousness of her condition. Later, Maria tells her mother confidentially of the visions of Christ she has received at decisive moments in her life, visions which have increased since her illness in Porto. In Porto, rumors are gathering that the Mother Superior of the Good Shepherd is a saint. In the churches, prayers are said for her recovery. While confined to bed, Maria continues her apostolic work. "More than once it has happened," says her cousin Wilhelm von Galen, "that a visitor felt an inner transformation through the mere sight of Maria, before even a word was spoken." On June the 4th, 1897, she astonishes her father confessor, Don Teotonio, with the news,
"The Saviour has instructed me to write the Holy Father with a request that the entire human race be consecrated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus."
Don Teotonio advises Maria to exercise restraint. Nevertheless, on Holy Thursday, Maria believes once again to have heard the voice of Christ. With trembling hands, she writes to the Pope,
"Due to the Lord's repeated insistence, I once again approach you with childlike humility and urgency to request your holiness to lend new strength to the worship of the Sacred Heart."
Unbeknownst to Maria, Pope Leo XIII has for some time considered the thought of commencing the Holy Year with a demonstrative act of consecration. He forwards the letter to the Sacred Congregation of Rites with the remark, however, that it should not take effect at the present moment, for of crucial importance is the compatibility of world consecration with Catholic doctrine and church tradition. While the theologians in Rome debate, a seriously ill Mother Superior in Porto waits for news. Maria is almost entirely paralyzed. Shortly after Corpus Christi, she learns from the newspapers of the papal encyclical Annum Sacrum, which announces the consecration of the entire world for the 11th of June. Maria will not live to experience the event. On the 8th of June, Sister Maria of the Divine Heart dies at the age of 35. She is interred in a simple tomb in the cemetery in Porto. Despite the oppressive heat, hundreds accompany the coffin to its resting place. In 1910, after the proclamation of the Republic and following the bloody uprisings in Portugal, the Sisters of the Good Shepherd are forced to leave the country. The convent is taken over and converted into a barracks. In 1936, the coffin containing the earthly remains is relocated to a new chapel tomb. A decree is published in Rome in 1964, establishing the heroicity of Maria Droste zu Vischering's virtues, a prerequisite for the beatification which Pope Paul VI announced on All Saints' Day in 1975. Maria receives her final resting place in the newly built convent of the Good Shepherd in Porto, located in the city quarter of Ermesinda. Maria's zealous devotion to the Sacred Heart was an expression, for her a lived reality, that God became human.
God has revealed goodness and kindness to me. Let me pour out this love into the hearts of all. Let me welcome with compassion the poor, the oppressed, the rejected, those in danger, and lead them all to the Good Shepherd.
Maria lived her life according to the 31st Psalm, whose words adorned the proud entrance gate of the Castle Darfield as they had adorned the austere convent door at Porto. In te Domine speravi. In thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. Let me never be ashamed.